rolling analysis, rolling coverage rather, on the numbers that are trickling in. It's still early to tell, really, to make some of the more concrete predictions given the patterns and trends that have emerged. But obviously, we're monitoring those numbers rather closely. We're painting that national picture. We're obviously honing in on the provinces. We're looking at some of the outliers. We're looking at some of the contributing factors to really what has emerged this time round, trying to understand South Africa, but just obviously who have come out in their numbers to vote, and what this means for service delivery, for the state of our economy, state of SA Inc. at large. So those conversations continue. We're at the big days here at the Rock in mid-Jan, and of course we have had a plethora of expert panelists joining us. In fact, to continue the conversation, I'm just going to be joined by Carike Karsten, the senior technologist at CSIR. We're going to paint that picture as it stands, following that IC briefing as the numbers continue to trickle in. We make sense of the voting districts. Carike, good evening, and thanks for your time in the SABC at this hour. It has been a long day since the polls obviously wrapped up for South Africa. The elections are not done. We're trying to make sense of these numbers and these facts and figures. And, you know, the caution is to steer away from speculation at this point, just so that we can obviously look at the facts and figures and bring that most accurate data to South Africa. As it stands, talk to us about what's emerging on the national picture, given the voting districts and the ballots that have been counted.
We have 35% declared. So currently ANC standing at 42%, we're predicting at 41%. DA standing at 24%, we're predicting at 21%. MK, we're predicting at 14%, but still with that one, a bigger margin of error since it is a new addition.
Yes.
And then, EFF predicting at 9.3%. They're currently at 1.5, so more or less the same there. And then the rounding off the top five is then the PA. We're predicting at about 2%, where they're currently at 3%. But for PA, since it is also a smaller party, the margin of error plus minus 2 is a bit more significant for them.
Actually, perhaps you can help us understand that margins, given the data that has emerged, the accuracy of it as well, just for people who are just not privy to how the data and statistics work.
So we predict these models, and generally for the bigger parties, we have a margin of error of plus minus 2 percentage points. Where it comes to the smaller parties, it's a bit more difficult. It's still plus minus 2%, but when you add 1%, minus 2% gives you 0. So you can't go lower than 0. But so that's a bigger difference than you see in the bigger parties.
Because obviously now from the national picture, we're honing in on the different provinces and the data that has emerged. I know the KZN is still, being counted, so we'll stay away from that at this point, and I'll get that info a little later on. But talk to us about the info at your disposal that you can share with us at this point.
So for the Eastern Cape, at 47% declared. ANC is the majority there at 62%, followed by the DA that we're predicting at about 15%, and then EFF at 9.6% for that.
All right.
So that's the top three parties there in Eastern Cape. Then if we move on to Free State, 57% declared. We're predicting ANC at 52%, so that is very close to that margin, 2% down, then they don't have the majority anymore. Then DA we have at 22%, EFF at 12-13%, and then Vryheidsfront Plus we're predicting at around 3.25%.
Okay.
Then
so that's Eastern Cape and Free State. What other provinces at this point are you able to divulge regarding the data?
We can, if it loads, move on
as it loads. I mean, we're just obviously hearing the bells go on behind us, and that's obviously indicative about the counting, the tallying that is underway. That that scoreboard behind us really just predicting, the live coverage that we're bringing here. So just as Carike perhaps has technology back online. Is it back online? Okay, great. What else are you able to divulge at this point?
Yeah, so Western Cape sitting at 56% declared. DA holding strong at 54% predicted. So it's close to that 2% margin.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll see what happens when a bit more votes are declared. ANC close to 20% predicted. They're currently standing at 19%. And then in Western Cape also the third party is then PA that we predict around 8%, currently at 9.4%.
Okay.
So yeah, they also made an entrance there in the Western Cape.
Yes. And it's interesting because we've seen the political spectrum, increase somewhat given the addition of more political parties, opposition parties, and also independent candidates. So, I mean, these are all contributing to what's unfolding. Any surprises on the independent candidate front, just from your data, perhaps as you try and load the next province there?
Nothing I've seen in the data as of yet. I might have missed it, so there's a lot of different parties and candidates, but yeah, currently nothing standing out in the top 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. It's going to be interesting to see how that forms part of the analysis. Just given that that political spectrum had obviously expanded. So let's see which other province for you. So you've done Eastern Cape, Free State, and the Western Cape. What else is next?
So looking at Gauteng,
Yes.
just under 30% of voting districts declared. ANC currently leading there and predicted to lead 34%. Where DA is predicted at 27%, followed by EFF of around 13%, and then the Vryheidsfront Plus at 2%. So once again, closer to that margin of error.
Yes.
Then we can go on to Mpumalanga, just under 40% declared.
Okay.
ANC, they predicted 50%, so very close if they will have majority or not. Still to be decided once the more votes come in. EFF, they're at 13%, and DA at almost 12% we're predicting.
Okay.
Then, Northwest, sitting at around 32% of voting districts declared. ANC holding strong there with a predicted win of 58.
Okay.
Followed by the EFF at 18% and then DA at around 13%.
Okay. 6. That's about 6 of the provinces so far. You said excluding KZN. Any of the other ones coming through? I know there's Northern Cape as well. Sorry, we've done Eastern Cape. What else is
Northern
on the
Cape?
Data?
It seems is 93% declared already. So they're doing quick counting.
Yes, unsurprising though, right? Just given the numbers, obviously, and the percentage to the national vote.
So their ANC is predicted at 49%.
Okay.
Currently they're at 48. So it's very close to that margin, but if it's at 93% and they're at 48, we'll see what happens. Then DA predicted at 21%, followed then again by EFF at 13%.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I think that's what we can say now for the provincial ones while we wait for KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay. And so obviously now we're looking at possibilities and probabilities because we're trying to, perhaps it's still too early to make sense of that. So talk us through, the processes that are happening behind the scenes for this real-time data to emerge and how your team is actually compiling this. I know we don't want to get into speculation at this point. Perhaps it's going to be easier once we reach that 50% threshold, right?
So we just get the results of the voting districts counted from the IEC, and then we use that in our model, and the more results we get, the more accurate the model gets, because it's based on the preferences of certain areas and so on. So if those specific areas vote in a certain way and they're grouped with similar areas, you can predict better what they will do if you know more of them do the same.
And in terms of technical glitches, mitigating against some of the challenges, the realities on the ground for you as a team based on the model that you've come up with, anything to share and declare on that point at this point?
I think it's been running quite smoothly. The only issue was this morning where there was a bit of a lag with what the results were and what we received, but that was quickly sorted out by the team, and since then up and running, going well. So
all right, so I know you're obviously crunching these numbers, sitting, analyzing, and we're going to try and make sense of it. Perhaps as I leave the conversation there for now, really what can we expect from here into? I mean, it seems like it's a slower process than usual. There were talks about 50% mark really would have been reached by 3-4 o'clock. It's well into the evening. It seems like we're not going to be sleeping at this point. So talk us through the realities on the ground, the difference between previous elections and why the process has somewhat slowed down a bit.
Why the process has slowed down, not really an answer to that in terms of
at this point.
At this point, sure. I think that's more IEC thing than our thing, but I think from our side the predictions have been going well, and the team is happy with what's being put out there at the moment. So well, Carike, let's leave that conversation there for now. I know that this is not goodbye. We'll continue to hear the bell going off and more information. Thank you very much for your time at the SABC at this hour. Carike Karsten is, of course, a senior technologist at CSIR. Just breaking down the national picture at this point based on the voter turnout, and of course how South Africa has decided to cast their ballots, and then also just giving us a glimpse into what is currently transpired in the provincial region.